dancing and swaying to the music. Welcome everybody to the Brody File. We are glad you're with us. Donald Trump hanging out in a black church as the Republican presidential candidate. Who would have thunk it? But yeah, it's all true. Trump speaking at Great Faith Ministries in Detroit. Not only was he singing along to the praise and worship, they actually decked him out in an anointed cloth, and not a bad look for the Donald. Though we do have to say that we think Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat has him beat because Joseph's robe was huge. Still, Trump did his best. He told the congregation that he wants to listen to those in the African American communities. Here's some of his scripted remarks.
For centuries, the African American church has been the conscience of our country. So true. It's from the pews and pulpits, teachings of black churches all across this land that the civil rights movement lifted up its soul and lifted up the soul of our nation. It's from these pews that our nation has been inspired toward a better moral character, a deeper concern for mankind, and spirit of charity and unity that binds us all together, and we are bound together, and I see that today. This has been an amazing day for me. The African American faith community has been one of God's greatest gifts to America and to its people. There is perhaps no action our leaders can take that would do more to heal our country and support our people than to provide a greater platform to the black churches and churchgoers.
Donald Trump trying to show a softer side, a more compassionate side. We'll actually see how many people buy it. Speaking of buying it, we thought it would be a great idea for Trump to create a new revenue stream. He could actually start selling his own personal favorite praise and worship songbook. The following songs could be included. Have a look at some of these. We thought these would be great. Shout to the Lord, and to the huge crowds. Holy is the Lord, and I'm not too shabby myself. The God I Know, from 2 Corinthians. Lord, I Need You, to show up on Election Day. And finally, this one, we love this one. Here I Am to Worship, and to build a wall. Speaking of building a wall, let's talk about Trump and immigration. The media went bananas after Trump's immigration speech in Arizona, saying that he was doubling down on his hardline positions. Well, the Brody File begs to differ, and we're going to have more on that in a moment, but the tone did come across as a bit harsh and plain to his base of supporters. So after that speech, some Hispanic leaders who had met with Trump about immigration decided to abandon him on that effort. Now, not all felt that way. Sammy Rodriguez, with the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference, take a breath, tells the Brody File the following, quote, Donald Trump can build a wall, but he must likewise build a bridge towards the Hispanic American electorate if he wants to have any chance of capturing the White House. Before Hispanics abandon Trump, they must truly consider the consequences of losing the Supreme Court for generations to come. Religious liberty, life, and limited government are at risk. End of quote. Sammy Rodriguez out. He dropped the mic. Look, folks, the Brody File has a thing or two to say about Trump's immigration speech, so cue the graphic. Time for Brody File commentary. Look, everybody, there's no doubt Trump's not messing around when it comes to the issue of illegal immigration, but we have to remember a few things here. He is going after criminals, and also those who overstay their visas, and also those who are abusing the American welfare system. They're going to be deported, no question about it. That is the top tier he's really concerned with. Now, as for those who came to America illegally, but have kept their nose clean, he's really not after you, at least not yet. You are not the top priority. Now, look, Trump is no dummy. He's not going to start breaking up families unless mom and dad are hardened criminals. And this is why Trump didn't use the words deportation force in his Arizona speech Wednesday night. He actually carefully chose the words special deportation task force. And when he recited this phrase, it was in the context of using ICE, which of course is the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, to make sure that ICE is focused and making sure that they are focused on identifying and quickly removing the most dangerous criminal illegal immigrants in America who have evaded justice. So look, the reality is this: as long as there is no criminal activity involved, there's not going to be any deportation force that knocks at Abuela's door and tells grandma, sorry, you've got to go. The kids are going to have to fend for themselves in high school. Also, It's important to note that Trump used the following line. Here it is, quote, anyone who has entered the United States illegally is subject to deportation. He didn't say anyone who has entered the United States illegally needs to be deported. Okay, this is a big difference. It needs to be understood. So additionally, there's one other thing we need to point out. Notice what Trump said at the end of the speech. He said, quote, importantly, in several years, when we have accomplished all of our enforcement and deportation goals and truly ended illegal immigration for good, including the construction of a Great Wall, only then will we be in a position to consider the appropriate disposition of those individuals who remain. So you get it, right? In other words, Trump isn't interested in breaking up illegal immigrant families who are following our laws right now. It's going to be years before that part of the equation is tackled, and Trump may not even be president at that point. Barbara Streisand may be in Canada. Who knows? All right, finally, before we head to break, there are plenty of Republicans who think that if Hillary Clinton actually becomes president, she's going to make millions of illegal aliens legal. And that will be a doom and gloom scenario for the GOP. You know, NBC's Meet the Press talked about this topic recently, and the Brody file crew got a shout out. Oh, yeah. Have a look.
It was a startling quote from a former presidential candidate and a former member of Congress, Michelle Bachmann, in an interview that she did with the Christian Broadcasting Network and David Brody, who is a familiar face around this round table. Here it is.
Well, I don't want to be melodramatic, but I do want to be truthful.
Sure.
And I believe without a shadow of a doubt, this is the last election. This is it. This is the last election. And the reason why I say that, David, is because it's a math problem. She's going to change the demographics of the United States so that no Republican will ever win again.
All right, Alex, I got to go to you on this because I'm old enough to remember when, you know, the Republicans had the demographic advantage and the Democrats had all the older voters. And this is all cyclical. It happens. What is she talking about here?
Shame on Michelle Bachmann. This is the end of her Republican Party, the old Republican Party that failed. But if she only believes that this Republican Party, that our principles are good for people like her, that they're not good for the next generation of voters, for young people, for women, for minorities, for everybody, she shouldn't be a Republican. If that's all the faith you have in conservative principles, yes, she should leave the Republic. Hers is dead. By the way, that kind of thinking is what created the vacuum that defeated 16 other Republican candidates and let an outsider come in. It was all about us and not about the future. There's a message out there, another generation of Republicans. Let's open up this economy so that everybody benefits. Let's open up our schools. Let's open up healthcare. Everybody will benefit.
But I think what
She's the past. She's what's wrong with the Republican Party.
But the Republican Party had the Latino vote to lose. And what I mean by that is that the Latinos are the fastest purveyors of businesses. You actually, they're more, older generations are more conservative. And older generations are. So what she basically just said is she admitted that right now the Republican Party is a white nationalist party. And that's basically what she equated.
Well, she did. Hers is.
Look
at Donald Trump. The thing I'm proudest about Donald Trump.
But this is the thing is that if you actually want a party of ideas.
I know. I got to pause you guys.
Lots of food for thought in the coming years. All right, coming next, what is the alt-right? Is it a button on your computer keyboard? Actually, much more dangerous than that. We're back in a moment. And welcome back to the Brody File, everybody. The conservative movement has had its ups and downs over the decades. Now, today, there's another form of conservatism that has a lot of folks concerned. It's called the alt-right movement. Some conservatives want to hit the Control-Alt-Delete button on it. Jenny in the B Block, here to explain.
By now, you've probably heard about the alt-right.
These are racist ideas, race-baiting ideas, anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, anti-women, all key tenets making up the emerging racist ideology known as the alt-right.
Clinton is trying to tie Donald Trump's statements to this kind of philosophy, but his campaign says he disavows any groups associated with messages of hate. But what is the alt-right? It stands for alternative right and distinguishes itself from mainstream conservatism. It's often associated with efforts to preserve white identity. But painting a complete ideological picture is tough because there's no organized movement. Ramsey Paul asked why white people can't have a country of their own like Jews have Israel, but tweeted this reminder: loving your people does not mean you hate others. Black conservative tweets, the alt-right and Black Lives Matter are two wings of the same bird. tribalism gone awry? There's no clear leader, but Richard Spencer, president of the National Policy Institute, a white supremacist think tank, has been pushing the movement for years and has even been called the Karl Marx of the alt-right. Meanwhile, Jonah Goldberg writes, there's a diversity of views among the self-described alt-right, but the one unifying sentiment is racism, or what they like to call racialism or race realism. In the words of one alt-right leader, Jared Taylor, the races are not equal and equivalent.
And Jennifer with Sean, Jenny in the B block here.
Here.
Oh, you live and in person. You're not an animated graphic.
No.
Good to see you. What in the world is going on here? You want to explain some of this?
Well, I kind of feel like we should be discussing this in the Oy Vey segment of the show. Right. As I said in the piece, it's difficult to exactly pinpoint who these people are. But just think about this, David. White Europeans founded America, right? They've always been in the majority. They've always been setting the tone for America. That's changing. White people aren't having enough babies to keep up with other racial groups and immigration rates. And so we're seeing this, change in America, a fundamental change. America is going to look a lot different. The leadership is going to look a lot different. And so I think you're seeing some white Americans having a problem with that. There are blatant, racist tones, and there are also subtle racist tones in this movement for sure, but there are also people associated with this who are not okay with that at all. We heard, then there's also this other part we heard in the piece, this gentleman saying, why can't white people have their own country like Jews have Israel? Which, of course, is not what America is all about, right? So it's hard, it's a mixed bag.
Let me ask you, there's some terms, racialism,
yes.
Race realism. Explain, can you help us with these terms?
These are new to me. Racialism is basically a theory that your race determines your traits and your capabilities. And so for white supremacists, that's the theory they use to say that whites are supreme and that allowing non-whites to be in a majority or in control is only going to lead to chaos.
Interesting. Well, we'll leave it there
Yes.
On that question. How does the changing culture fit into all of this?
Well, if you think about, just in the last 8 years, we've seen not only population shifts, at the same time the population has kind of been shifting in terms of whites on the decline, other groups on the rise. We've seen the culture change dramatically. And, polling shows us that a number of white Americans believe that we would be better off if we kind of returned to the 1950s. And so I think that's another thing that's playing in this. Again, when white America was, white Americans were clearly in the majority, and the culture, the values of the nation were much different.
I am curious, we've got about 30 seconds or less, as our producer Amber C. Strong will tell me. How's Donald Trump affected by all this? Because Hillary Clinton's already talking about alt-right and Donald Trump. She's trying to lump the two together. How's Trump affected?
She's trying to tie him to the racist elements. But and certainly the alt-right is attracted to him because of his immigration tough talk and some of the rhetoric that he has put out there. So he has said that he's not supportive of any group that espouses messages of hate. But I think because of who he is and kind of what he stands for, look, there's a lot of angry Americans who are fueling the Trump train. And so I think the alt-right is going to follow him right to Election Day.
Jenny, a pleasure. I'd talk more about it, but they're going to have a trap door for both of us here in a moment.
You got to go.
I got to run. Time is money. Thanks, Jenny. Sure. All right, when we come back, Canada, celebrities, Trump, Barbara Streisand, Oy Vey Volt. Amber C. Strong with Poplitical next. And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File. All right, time now to talk about Canada, Donald Trump, Barbara Streisand, Miley Cyrus. They want to hit the road north if Trump wins. Polls are tightening. Get ready, Barbara. Get ready, Miley. And get ready for this week's edition of Poplitical with Amber C. Strong.
Thanks, David. So this week on Poplitical, we're starting with a question. Who popped in on your first day of college? Was it mom? Dad, maybe?
Hi, honey.
How about the First Lady? Yeah, that's right. First Lady Michelle Obama popped in on Howard University students. The FLOTUS visited the famous HBCU with none other than late-night host Seth Meyers and actor-rapper Nick Cannon. The visit was part of the First Lady's Reach Higher initiative, which encourages students to pursue higher education. I mean, seriously, Howard, the First Lady? Although my college did have George H.W. Bush and Condoleezza Rice, so no shade, and shout out to Harding University. Go Bison. Hey, speaking of the late night shows and Seth Meyers, Barbara Streisand, am I saying that right? Barbara Streisand hooked up with Jimmy Fallon for a remake of the famed song, Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better. Obviously, the song featured Fallon portraying Trump, and while that may be in jest, Streisand is an outspoken critic of the presidential nominee. She recently told Australia's version of 60 Minutes, should Trump win the White House, she would, quote, either come to their country, Australia, or Canada, if they let me in. So Barbara Streisand isn't the only celebrity not jumping on the Trump train. As a matter of fact, a lot of Tinseltown favorites have said, should he win the nomination, they're heading north of the border. So what has so many celebrities all of a sudden singing, Oh, Canada? For the answer to that question, we're going to head to our own Abigail Robertson in the first ever Poplitical meets What's the Haps.
Thanks, Amber. Well, we know Barbara Streisand will be packing her bags if Trump takes over the White House, so let's take a look at some of her famous friends who say they're going with her. One of the most vocal celebrities talking about her big move is Raven-Symoné, former Disney star turned talk show host. Before Trump even officially secured the nomination, Symoné claimed she would move her entire family to Canada if any Republican wins the election.
I already have my ticket.
Really?
No, I literally bought my ticket, I swear.
You're not a citizen, you know, of Canada.
It's okay, I'll make it. I'll figure that out.
Fellow Disney star Miley Cyrus said in an emotional, expletive-filled Instagram post featuring a photo of Donald Trump, "I am moving if this is my president. I don't say things I don't mean." Cher and Jon Stewart have set their sights a little farther than Canada. Stewart joked at the 2015 Emmys, "I would consider getting in a rocket and going to another planet because clearly this planet's gone bonkers." As for George Lopez, he says Trump won't even have to worry about immigration reform.
Listen, if he wins, he won't have to worry about immigration. We'll all go back.
Rosie O'Donnell and Whoopi Goldberg also alluded they would leave, but after a gleeful response from the candidate, changed their minds.
Now I have to get elected because I'll be doing a great service to our country.
The polls are getting closer and closer each day, so Jon Stewart might want to think about getting that rocket fueled up. Back to you, David.
Amber C. Strong with Poplitical and Abigail Robertson with What's the Haps, a 2-for-1 here on the Brody File, free of charge. All right, coming next, it's the city intersection that has Americans talking. We head to the corner of Jenna and Browder. Jenna's new segment next. Welcome back to the Brody File, everybody. Look, we're a show of the people, by the people, and for the people. So, what better way to fulfill that goal than with our next segment? The Brody File's Jenna Browder getting the pulse of America. She's finding it at the hippest, coolest, trendiest spot in America. It's at the corner of Jenna and Browder.
Well, the two presidential candidates could not be more different, but one thing they do have in common is their unpopularity in the polls. So we're out here asking, what should they be doing differently? Okay, so ladies, overall impression of the two presidential candidates. What do you think of the two presidential candidates?
I think Hillary Clinton is the best choice of the two worst choices.
I think they're both like super unique candidates this year. Good word choice. Let's see.
At present, Hillary Clinton is about 4 lies ahead of Donald Trump.
I think Hillary's trying real hard, but somehow managing to struggle, and Trump is exploding? I don't know.
Get him out of here! But I think if he works very hard between now and November, he may be able to catch up with her, but he will have to work night and day in order to do that. Because she's expert at this and has been doing the lying since the 90s and even before then.
I think they couldn't really be more different than they are. So there's that.
I could play a game with these the way I've got it. One of these things is not like the others.
If you were Donald Trump's campaign manager for the day, what would be your advice to him?
I think I would advise him to...
If you were her campaign manager for the day, what would be your advice to her?
focus on your own strengths and not so much on the other candidate?
I've been in a room with her, and I'm just aware that she's extremely different in a small live group than she is in a big political arena.
Well, I would tell Mr. Trump to try to get comfortable lying as Hillary Clinton is.
I would advise them to focus on her really liberal past. She used to be way out in the forefront of a lot of huge issues, and I think she got burned really badly. And having that sort of narrative of how she got to the more moderate place she is now, I think would humanize her.
Start reading some, start reading more, and getting a little bit more educated on the issues.
Actually, I was only kidding. You can get the baby out of here.
You know, to take seriously people who have had a lot of experience in politics.
Maybe if he tells the people that he did shady real estate deals like Mrs. Sun did in Arkansas with Whitewater and so forth, maybe he'll pull ahead against her. I don't know.
Maybe there is, I don't know.
Obviously a smart man, but I think he could do a better job of being on point.
And your advice for the Clinton camp?
My advice to the Clinton camp would be to keep on lying. She should keep on lying. They've been lying for so long. If she were to tell the truth, I think she would lose votes.
And there you have it. You never know what kind of interesting thoughts and people you'll run into on the corner of Jenna and Browder. David?
Jenna Browder hitting the streets. Thanks, Jenna. All right, back in a moment. Hey, that's it for this week, folks, but join us next week from the Values Voters Summit. We're making the long trek to the other side of D.C. It's long, all right, 5 minutes, to bring you this coverage, so don't miss it. We may even have an interview from a certain presidential nominee, if you catch my drift. And by the way, if you can't catch the show, you can always keep up with us here on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. We're everywhere, and my mom even follows me on Instagram. That does it from all of us here at the Brody File. Until next time, God bless. Have a great week.